Games. This is kind of a weird episode. This whole week's going to be weird. I'm going to tell you why, and then do me a favor as people roll in and they start asking, what the fuck is this, Jaffe? Hopefully you don't mind telling them and explaining it so I don't have to stop and explain it over and over so I can keep the show rolling. We're doing a normal show today. Happy Halloween. Let me fill you in on what's going on. 1 second, I'm getting up. So my computer is kaput. Guys coming out. I thought we figured it out the other day. Hang on. And turns out we hadn't figured it out just yet. And in that, it is guys coming out to look at replacing the coolant system or whatever. And if that doesn't work, we're just going to pull the trigger on a new one, which I was already doing anyway. So, point being, though, is that's why this is all. I'm broadcasting from my phone. I got my iPad right here, so I'm taking a look at the chat on this screen as well as some news. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today. Welcome to Gavin Games. Good to see you. Nothing really changes. I will not let you down. I will not abandon you in your time of need. How are you? How was Halloween? By the way, Halloween, and let me know if the audio is working because I'm using this little lavalier mic. Let me know if it's good. So obviously we had some Halloween shit planned. That is going to happen. It will be Halloween in November. It'll be in a couple of days once my PC's fixed, but there's no way I can do the horror specials and all. I can't even show you a different screen right now. So this is kind of it. Maybe I'll stream a horror game tonight on my PlayStation or something. But it sucks being without a computer. You guys have no idea. Well, you might have an idea. New video point of view for us to enjoy this Halloween, says Connor Steinbach. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. But again, the news doesn't stop just because it's one of the best holidays in the creation of man. Okay? And so in that, we're going to talk video games. I want to let you know a couple things first, though. Dementium the Ward is a game by a TUI. It's a remake of the Switch game, of the 3DS game. I have a couple of copies to give away. I was going to stream it Halloween morning, apropos and whatnot. Can't do that now, so I'll be doing that tomorrow or the next day once my computer's back fixed. But first week or so in November, you'll have a chance, if you watch the show, to get yourself a copy of that survival horror first-person adventure. Pretty fucking cool. I don't like what they're doing with the checkpoints in that game from what I understand, but short of that, it's pretty fucking cool. I don't know if you played it before. Okay. Let's talk about some stuff. Oh, before I get into video games, you know what I started watching? I started watching this last night, and I'm on episode 3. I mean, I started watching it really late last night, so I'm behind. And I could only binge 2.5 episodes, but it was so good. I started watching Gen V, which is about the college kids in The Boys in that universe. I never really started watching The Boys much. Couldn't get into it. Everybody tells me get past the pilot. Maybe I will. But what I will tell you is Gen V is the shit, man. That thing is great. I'm going to tell you something. It is, I almost watched it with my son. I'm like, hey, let's watch this together. But good God. Good God, that is not something parents should watch with their children, folk. I'll tell you, there is one point, there's one point, this is on Amazon Prime, where there's this girl, college girl, with the ability to shrink down, kind of like Ant-Man. And there's this one guy, I mean, this is the kind of vulgarity we're in for, and he's real insecure about the size of his penis. And so he's messing around with it, they're hooking up, and he says, hey, will you shrink down and then just hang on my penis and talk about how big it is? Because for Ant-Man-sized people, his dick's perfectly fine. That's the kind of show we're talking about. And you see the whole fucking thing, and she's kicking him in the balls. It's the funniest fucking thing. I really dig it. I really, really dig it. That is called Gen V. It's 8 episodes on Amazon Prime happening right now. Okay. Look. It's a little, fuck it, I'm not going to tell you. Well, I do the best I can. People are saying The Boys is just as graphic. You'll love it. I need to watch it. I'm going to, after Gen V, I'm going to give myself the chance to watch it beyond the pilot. I just thought the pilot was cool, but I was kind of like, didn't really hold me. But I hear people love it. Benji Martinez says, did you see my tweet about the uber lackluster response to Axios about Connie Booth? Response to who? Are you saying like the general population didn't seem to give a shit, or are you saying there was some kind of official response to that? Bossman Davey says, this is a family-friendly show, right? Probably not. It's not really meant for kids. I mean, I cuss like a sailor. I do not understand. We'll get to the news in one sec. Great One says, why did Microsoft let Sony keep the marketing rights to what would have been part of that 10-year agreement? They have to, for the life of me, I do not understand. Microsoft let Sony keep the marketing rights to Call of Duty, you mean? I mean, they have a contract already, but my understanding is once that contract, which we'll talk about as it relates to the PS5 Slim in a second, kind of runs its course, it's done. The only real, even the my understanding is even the Ubisoft streaming rights going for Call of Duty to Ubisoft is only 10 years or so. It's capped. It's not forever, I believe. Addie Pie says, Jaffe, do you think Connie hates how much attention you were bringing to her? I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm not really, you know, it's not like she's the Beatles and you can't go outside and go shopping. But, you know, she's a big name, you know. So, you know, here's what I would say to Connie if she called me and said, I don't like that. I'd say, you know what? I get it. But you're a huge influence and you're a huge ground bricklayer of this industry, of this particular console. And shit's going down. People are going to talk. So, you know, I don't think she ever pursued the spotlight, but it's not like she's in the spotlight now and, you know, Connie Booth's on the tip of everybody's tongue right now. Connie Booth is a you know what I think about Connie. She's the shit. But what I would tell you is she's just one of several dominoes that are pretty fucking big that seem to be falling right now that we'll be talking about in just a second. Jaffe says, Dougie Jones, you remind me of a jolly old prospector. Does this ring true for you? Well, I'll tell you what, we got ourselves some gold right now up in Dougie Jones's mama's vagina. I told you this wasn't a family-friendly show, Dougie Jones. I've heard that before, especially once the beard gets going. People tell me when I don't have the beard, I look 20 years, 30 years younger, but I like the beard. That's not even true. You know what I like? I like not having to worry about it. I just get up and I go on with my goddamn life. Big Bad Eddie Torres wants us to know, who's excited for No Nut November? No one. Who does that? Why would you even do that? All right, let's move forward. Alan Wake 2. Let's talk about this. I spent a little time. I'm not used to a mic like this. I spent a little time. You loved me in Toy Story 2. Thank you. I spent a little time with Alan Wake 2. I've gotten to about the third chapter, second and a half chapter, whatever, and I really like it. And I have heard people say, you know, there's a couple of different pacing scenarios and gameplay scenarios, and the first two chapters, good as they are, don't represent the whole game, and I get why that would be. And so I'm not ready to judge it yet, other than to say I really like the writing, I like the story. I think I know where the story's going, in which case I would say it's a little too obvious, but maybe what I think is going to happen is not what's going to happen. But I will tell you, the game so far, to me, feels very much like one of those Sherlock Holmes games, where it's like, you know, I would say 40% of my time so far has been spent wandering around the environment, looking for clues. Those become photographs. Then I go into her headspace, and kind of like in a Sherlock Holmes detective video game, you're putting the pictures on the wall, and okay, this clue is associated with this problem and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is cool, and the story's really cool, and the presentation's really cool, but I'm struggling to figure out why this is, like, you know, being talked about like it's the next big thing. It may become the next big thing, but right now that's where I'm at with it. Dano Genesis, thank you, buddy. He's been a member for 36 months. What's that, 3 fucking years? Happy anniversary, old so-and-so. Thank you, Dano, for all the goddamn support. I really appreciate that, buddy. That's very kind, very courteous, very generous. Is it a walking sim? It's no, it's not a walking sim. I mean, you know, there is some action in there. There's some puzzles. It's not just like you're wandering, but it is a very semi slow burn opening, but it's engaging. I'm really not insulting it. I like it. If I didn't, I'd stop playing it. But it does feel a little right now like I'm not getting the big deal other than, hey, it's a really cool story. But I hear it really gets crazy, and I'm looking forward to it getting crazy. So we'll see where it goes. But anyway, that's what I'm playing right now. Let me know if you guys are playing that as well. I'm also trying to finish Spider-Man. It feels, says Eddie T, talking about Alan Wake. He's played a few chapters as well. He says, it feels weird having to put the clues in your mind together while an NPC stands there waiting so you can progress. Yeah, sure. But I think what he's talking about is the main, a main character, her name is Saga, which is so weird for me. I guess that's a normal name in places, but in America, it's like, what? But she is kind of like a savant. You know, she can get into the minds of killers and stuff. And so you can go into her mind room, and that's where she has, it's like her hub. She can assemble clues, and she can perceive the world through, certain people's eyes, and she can upgrade her weapons. And yeah, I mean, if you look at it literally, what's happening is she goes into her mind room and everyone else is just sort of standing around waiting for her. But my guess is it's kind of like time in that place is, I don't think it's a literal representation, but it's very, very cool. It's very, very cool. Brett Moore says the first boss in this game pissed him off. I don't even know I haven't gotten to the first boss. I got to Nightingale, but that wasn't, maybe I did get to the first boss. If I went into the ladle and all that shit, maybe that's the first boss, and then I'm dealing with Nightingale a second time, and I got my ass kicked last night, so I haven't come back. Still looks okay. It does get pretty crazy later, says a Cap. That's what I'm looking forward to. Michael says, I like Alan Wake 2. I just wish it held your hand more in the game. I have been getting lost a lot. He's who I was talking about. I died a lot on that fight. Talking about Nightingale. Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Bass Digi says Alan Wake 2 is the best game I've ever played. Did you feel that way about Alan Wake 2 in the first 2 chapters, or did it take it unfolding for 5, 6, 7 chapters before you're like, oh my God, I get what this is. This is amazing. Because if you're saying the first 2 chapters you were already like, this is the best game I've ever played, then I will tell you that's certainly not my experience. It's not bad, but I like it. But Video Games Obsession says, what? Bungie went bust. They've shut down. Please explain. I will. I'll get there. Do I watch the streamer Destiny? I don't know who that is. No. Okay. Ali says, have you played Cyberpunk 2077 recently? No, I'm going to be playing that again from scratch over Thanksgiving. That's my kind of Thanksgiving holiday game. So, okay, here we go. Let's talk about some stuff. First, let's talk about RoboCop. RoboCop is a weird one, man. RoboCop came out. It's sitting at I think it's like at a 70. Let me check. It's sitting at a 70. And again, I keep looking down because my iPad's down here. Yeah, we're looking at a 70 on Metacritic. What people say mostly about this game that excites them is that it is incredibly faithful to the 80s movie. They say, and the demo bears that out. If you just played the demo, you're like, wow, this really does feel like you've stepped into the Paul Verhoeven movie, which is excellent. But that's the joy of it. That's what people are loving. The ding on it is it's really heartfelt for RoboCop. It feels like RoboCop, but it's kind of linear. It's kind of basic. And so be aware of that. But if you're into that, you're going to dig it. It's here's a couple of mid scores. Give you an idea what the mid score people are saying. Even if Rogue City had started to rust a little towards the end of its lengthy campaign, its surprisingly in-depth shooting and role-playing, love of the source material, and understanding of what makes RoboCop great has made it one of the gems of the year. Frustrating late-game combat and clumsy resolved story raises questions if the game's for anyone other than RoboCop fans. Eurogamer says it's bloody linear shootouts with light open-world action for an entertaining, if unadventurous, experience. So, to me, it's a couple of questions. It's like October 2023. I mean, we were talking... I don't know how Alan Wake's going to fucking do. As great as it's being reviewed, given it's smack dab in the middle of a sea of sharks as we head into the holidays. RoboCop? Are you out of your mind? Why the fuck would you put this game out now unless they just had no choice? I don't know, but this is almost... May as well piss your money away, is what I would say. Because think about this for a minute. RoboCop, I'm 52 years old. I was a teenager. I was the exact age for RoboCop when it came out. I was like 15. And I'm not saying only people of my generation like RoboCop, but RoboCop is not, Star Wars. It hasn't been this franchise that's been nurtured and brought up to new gen, fan bases. So it's a nostalgia play, right? Which would be fine, I guess, if there's a big enough audience for it. But that would be fine if you're talking about if you put it out in March. But now you're putting it out at the height of the best year of games and the most busy, expensive month, I would say probably in the history of the medium. I don't know what they're thinking, but it did get me thinking. When I was 28, something like that, and I was right in that sweet spot for, they say like 18 to 34. That's the real, they like to spend money on disposable shit. And the people who did the nostalgia play for my generation, that was the right kind of cadence of time, right? You're like 10 to 15, and then when you're 25 to 35, you're going to be responsive to a lot of the shit that you liked as a teenager, right? So like, I remember Dukes of Hazzard was a massive fucking hit. Frogger was a over $1 million seller on PS1. Both games were fine, but it did get me... I learned that. I was just like, that's interesting that you can almost, if you're looking for a license for a game, you can almost kind of go back 15 years, and that's where you should be digging, or 20 years, give or take. So think about this. This is what I want to know what you think about this. So I was thinking, okay, if you're a 25-year-old today, and obviously you can be 20, you can be 32, but if you're in that really lucrative spot, and you go back, we're 2023 now, so we go back to 2013, and then let's go back another 5 years. We're looking like the first decade of the 2000s are where they were early teens, mid-teens in that time period, 2000 to 2010. What was in the zeitgeist then that you could do a nostalgia play on now? Here's the list I came up with. I'll look at the chat. You tell me what you think and tell me if there's something better. Kill Bill. I don't think Tarantino's ever licensed his shit, but Kill Bill I think would make a great action game, and I think a lot of people today of that very lucrative demographic would vibe with it. 28 Days Later. The X-Files. How come they hadn't brought the X-Files back and made an Alan Wake-style action horror game? X-Files right in that sweet spot of nostalgia right now. Stargate is another one. Attack the Block, which was kind of culty, but I don't think it's any more or less culty than RoboCop was. Pan's Labyrinth. And listen to this one. Can you imagine somebody getting the rights to make The Room, the video game? Because that was the big shit back in that time period. Those are ones that if I was still in the business and I was looking to do a nostalgia licensing play, I would be looking at those. Let me go to the chat real quick. Again, the chat's on a different screen, so I'm not going to be as instantly responsive today as I usually am, but I'm here for you. I'm not going to let you down. Let's see what you guys are saying. Okay. Man, the new RoboCop game, says Jonas Larson, looks like an average game mechanics-wise, but atmosphere is on point. I agree. It's exactly what I felt when I played the demo. And if you played the demo, you are spot on, because they do a great job of capturing what makes RoboCop RoboCop. It's got the humor, and they've obviously got, I forget what her name was, Nancy Allen or something. They have the actress who played Lewis. I'm almost certain that's Peter Weller back. It really is. They get it, and that's great. Moment-to-moment mechanics are satisfying, but you've been there. You've done that before. So, okay. It looks like a good game RoboCop does from 2006 in the best way possible, says G from Space. Kind of. That's what the demo made me think, but then the demo goes open world, although it's kind of small open world. I'm not quite sure how I'm feeling about that. I'm also, what I like about it, but I'm not sure if it works, is how they actually have Murphy, RoboCop. It's not just action mission, action mission, action mission. It's like, oh, these guys are being dicks to this new cop recruit. What does RoboCop do? Or the chief asks RoboCop to step in and deal with the public and all of their issues. Like, I want a permit for my kid's birthday party. And it's like, so you're having to do that shit too as these little side things. And that's cool, but I don't know what the balance is for that. Like, how much of that before it just gets like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. Cathal says Peter Weller is 76 years old. Yeah, but he could still do the voice, right? Okay. Dano Genesis says, what has a worse track record? Movie games or video game movies? I think they both have a pretty bad track record, but I think simply because you've had more video games based on movies, that you're going to have a greater percentage of those that are shit and that have built this mental assumption amongst gamers that those are bad. But I think they're both getting better. I mean, they're both getting better. What's my Halloween costume, Blake says? It's a dad who drives his kid around tonight to make sure he gets to where his friends are safely. Okay. Let me get some... Looking at the chat. Like I said, sorry, fellas. Okay. Yeah, I heard RoboCop versus Terminator on Genesis was good. I never played it, actually. Okay. I'm sorry, fellas. I'm just running behind. Day of the Dead would make a great game, says Video Game Obsession, if you're talking about going back to those nostalgia plays. So, was Day of the Dead the Zack Snyder one? Which, boy, if it was, that was right in that time period. I agree with you. And it was fucking great. I don't know if you could do enough to differentiate it from all the other zombie shit that's out there. So that would be my only thing. It's not like most people remember the characters in Day of the Dead. So it may not really track, but I agree it's fucking great. Great fucking movie. And it would make a great game. I just don't know if it would be super successful. X-Files had 2 games, says Cheetah. Yeah, back in the day. But X-Files has been dormant for a long fucking time. I think now people would be all over it. Bacon says they should make more Cartoon Network and Adult Swim games like Samurai Jack or Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think... I mean, they've done both of those, but to bring them back... And Samurai Jack did just come out a couple of years ago, and I thought it was quite good, but I don't think it was a big smash hit. So, okay. I'm just looking at you guys, what movies or games you think from the early 2000s that would be great. Dougie Jones says, I want a movie game for Holes, the Shia LaBeouf movie, so I can look for holes in the desert and dig holes for 90 minutes. I think I did not see that movie, but I know it's a touchstone. Vince C says, I'd like a Total Recall game. I would too, but again, that's the 80s kid era. Does the average 25-year-old even know what the actual Total Recall is beyond just being aware of it? There was the remake, which was fine, but I don't think that's worth making a game about. Okay. Yes. Oh, Dawn of the Dead is the Zack Snyder one, says Pastor. Okay. Okay. We need games to be games. Adding entertainment ideas from other media is fine. We do, but I'm just saying that if you are in it just to make money, and it's business mostly in a lot of ways, looking at, especially these days, looking at kind of like a safe bet license, if you can make it a great game, is not a bad idea. Spider-Man 2, which I'm loving, certainly without the Spider-Man license, even if it was the exact same game and a brand new superhero, would not be doing near as well for Sony, even though it's excellent, even though it's fucking excellent. Big Trouble in Little China game win. I don't know. Oh, that's a good. Kim Possible, says Bacon Magma. I could see that doing well. You never reviewed Spider-Man 2, says Old School Gamer. It's because I haven't finished it yet. There's too much to play. I'm jumped over to Alan Wake 2, but I'm itching to get back to Spider-Man. Mission Impossible game. There was one, but one now. Yeah, I would agree. Gargoyles Disney AAA game. That's a good idea. Ultraviolent Judge Dredd game. That's a good idea. Lutron. All right, so there you go. It's my contribution to the folks who are greenlighting games today. Go out and get yourself some 2000 to 2010, the early aughts, as the kids say, and find yourself a hit along the lines. And again, though, RoboCop, I think, is a niche of a niche of a niche. I mean, you're releasing it at a terrible time, and you're also putting out a game that can't really compete with the AAA games. And a lot of the people who grew up on RoboCop and loved it, I think they, I don't know if let's just put it this way. I don't know if the audience yet for, 35 to 55-year-olds who play action games is as lucrative as the 18 to 34-year-old demographic that plays action games. I think that's a lot more lucrative. So the RoboCop thing is weird to me, but it is what it is. I wish him well. Even Downward Incline says, make anew the thing. I agree. But again, it's same thing with Indiana Jones, man. Indiana Jones, Bold Alpha Wolfpack says, Microsoft has Indiana Jones game of the way. And I love Indiana Jones. The reason I went out to California to learn to make movies or try to make movies is Indiana Jones. But kids, they don't give a fuck about Indiana Jones. How do I know? Look at the box office of the last movie. Wasn't a great movie, but Indiana Jones is kind of like when I was 15, it would be like somebody saying, "Hey, Jaffe, they're making a movie about the character James Dean played in Giant or something." I'm just like, what? Okay, I mean, it's just old. It's fucking old for these kids. So I'm looking forward to it, but I've never understood the business mindset behind it. Nine Live says, you don't know that, Jaffe. No, of course. Little side journey here. If you're coming to this here stream because you think everything I say is absolutely based on decades of research, yes, I don't know if the audience for Indiana Jones is big enough right now to merit the kind of money they're spending on a video game for it, which I assume is relatively big. I don't know that, but I'm assuming that, and I'm assuming that based on box office, and I'm assuming that based on the fact that they had a chance to sort of bring indie back into the limelight, and they really shat the bed with that movie, and I say this as a massive fucking indie fan, so, there you go on that. Indiana Jones for kids today is like making a John Wayne game, says Doug. Right, that's a better one. Absolutely. Young folks watch old stuff too. At least I did, says Con. Yeah, I'm not saying they're not aware of who it is. I watched movies like Forbidden Planet when I was a teenager, but it wasn't. You're not gonna be like, hey, let's go out and buy Robbie the Robot bed sheets for Christmas. It's out of the zeitgeist, baby. That's the way it goes. Okay, yeah, well, I agree. Matt D says, I think we're already at the point where real cinema is just less relevant to young people. 100%. 100%. Okay. Let me get the super chat. Thank you, Bossman Davey, 1980. Never met a girl that had a complainy. Whenever he stepped up and took him out, all they did was scream and shout. Who is that with the hair so wavy? It's my new sexy boyfriend, Bossman Davey. Bossman Davey, thank you for the super chat. He says Sony should buy Sega. Too many lost IPs with potential. Shinobi, Golden Axe, and Alien Syndrome can be AA. We need those games back, Bossman Davey says. I don't agree. I don't think Sega's a good buy maybe because they got Persona, right? Isn't Sega and Sammy or Atlas all... I think it's the same thing, but if not... and you're just getting Sonic and Golden Axe means nothing. Shinobi means nothing. Like, you can make a Shinobi game, you can make a Golden Axe game, and they've done that. The Shinobi games, they made a couple of them for PS2. We actually took some inspiration from some of their art design for God of War 1. But I don't think those are, it's a great example. Right now, I want to see if I can get the CEO of Atari, who may actually be willing to talk to me. They just acquired Digital Eclipse, great company today. They've been picking up a lot of these retro companies that make retro games, updates, things like that. But again, even that, it's like, they came out with Haunted House recently. They came out with a Lunar Lander update. I mean, these are games that are beloved from people from a certain generation, but there's not enough meat on the bone to be having to buy a company to get Golden Axe. Just make your own fucking thing and call it, Axe of the Warrior, whatever, and it'll you own the IP. You don't have to pay for it. Holy shit, Brett Moore's actually referencing Flight of the Navigator. I remember that movie. Last Starfighter, remember that? Yeah, that'd make a good one. Okay. If Sony bought Ubisoft, would they own the streaming rights to Call of Duty? That's a great point, Lutron. I haven't seen the contract, but I guess they would. If you own Ubisoft, you own the streaming rights, at least for a limited time, I think, to Call of Duty. Imagine that. That would be a great... Maybe that's why Sony's laying off all these people to get the money to buy Ubisoft. Can you imagine? Nostalgia will kill gaming, says Black Rider. No, it won't. Why would it kill gaming? It's not. It will kill gaming if that's all there is. But there's so much creativity and variety in the medium right now. I don't know how. If you're familiar with all the stuff that's out there, I just don't see that. I don't see that. Dano says Sony is playing chess, not checkers. Sure, whatever. I mean, great if they are, but there's a point where you have to kind of win. The finals. Let's talk about the finals. A couple things interest me about this. The first one is people were asking me, they're like, hey, did you hear the finals is using a lot of AI for their character voices? And, the team has come out and said, I think they came out today and said, well, we are using it right now in the beta for a lot of things, and the final game will probably end up using it for like announcers and things like that, where we need to constantly change, and if the rule set changes or whatever. But the characters, we're probably going to go with live people. I get it's upset some people. People don't want to see the fact that AI is going to take over. I get it, but it is. It is, once it becomes affordable and good enough, and it already is in a lot of ways. But the good news is, people act like I want people to lose their jobs. I don't. I'm looking at it from an unemotional position of like what is likely to happen given the history of how people run their companies in a capitalist society, right? I was happy to see, I'm not going to get off track here, I just want to let you know though, that I read a study or an article about a study that said every single one, including the trials that they ran starting like 3 or 4 years ago, of the universal base income tests that they were doing at various cities in America, every single one has proven out to be very beneficial, very positive, and actually good for the economy. So I definitely think fundamentally we're going to need some societal shifts as this stuff come down the line. But if AI is good enough to do the job, why would you pay more for someone else to do it just because they're a human? But it's different. They're different things. They're different things. Man Cave, thank you for the super chat. He says, God of War 2005 remake already. I would love for them to remake God of War narrative, but with the current God of War over-the-shoulder. Do some camera cuts. I'm not a fan of this never cut camera. I don't see the value of that. I think it'd be great. Why not? I think the combat in the new God of War is great. I don't really like Norse mythology. I don't think the environments are varied enough. I know, don't come at me. I know they're in the new one. There's some varied environments, but I don't like it. I think Greek mythology is more appealing. Combat's great. Would be fun to see all those monsters and bosses done with that tech and that team. Absolutely. I'm there. If you mean like an actual, just a remaster remake, but it's still a side scroller. I've been wanting to do a Castlevania. Sorry, it was never a side scroller. Sorry, that's wrong. I made that game. What? I've been wanting to do a God of War 2.5D Castlevania, forever. And I just haven't, obviously now I'm out of Sony. There's no way I'm going to do it. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing any anniversary chats. If I am, I'll get them on the next stream. Like I said, I'm just, maybe I can look at this. Let's see, top messages. Can I change this? You got to forgive me. This is all pretty, chat filter. Okay, hang on. Let's see. Did I miss any? Okay, good. Now I can jump between those. Sorry. Again, I'm not going to keep talking about it. It's crazy. This is so new to me. Working on an iPad and an iPhone instead of a PC for the day. Chat filter, all messages. There we go. That should be working better now. Okay. 2D Kratos is excellent in Shovel Knight. Yeah, I would love to. There we go. I think we're back. Are we back? Let me know. Again, this is not on a PC today. This is kind of a pain in the ass. Okay. All right. The other thing I want to say about the finals, which is really interesting to me, is that, I downloaded the finals. I don't know if the beta is still going, but the beta, when I read people talking about it online, I was like, people were like, it's okay. I played it for a couple rounds out of, Time to Kill's too long, which I actually like. It's just not, the destruction's cool, but it's not that great. And a lot of people aren't playing the mode, blah, blah, blah. Whatever that mode is. I don't know if it's just straight up deathmatch or something more, not deathmatch, but something more necessary to work as a team than capture the flag. Samiam says, I really like the finals and the destruction is great. Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. So I will play it if it is still going. But here's what's interesting. So it has jumped to, even with some of that negative stuff that I've seen out there, people talking about it, it has jumped to the most wish-listed game on Steam, right? And the reason it's interesting to me is that, we are in a moment where there's a lot of people starting to, rightly so, question games as a service. Going, well, wait a minute, why does this one work and that one doesn't, right? And, you look at something like Foam Stars, which I remember being just everybody losing their shit over and saying was amazing when people played it at Keeley's show. But nobody's talking about Foam Stars now. So is it DOA? Not necessarily. But it's definitely not going into its next phase, whatever that is, alpha, beta, with a lot of wind behind it, And so I wonder, and you could say, well, obviously the finals is realistic, it's violent, it's military, you should know by now. Don't, unless you're Nintendo, stay with that. But, didn't Ubisoft have, what was it, Hyperscape or something? There have been a number of these titles that were also just sort of basic military and didn't connect either. So I'm very curious what it is about the finals that was impressive enough. And if you are in the games as a service space or like Sony trying to get in, I wonder what's so impressive about it for people that it makes them go, I want this is my number one wish list game on Steam. Foam Stars is PS only. Well, it's also Steam. It'll be PC as well. Foam Stars says Miguel was absolutely hyped up by the media because it was shown at a Sony show and games as a service. People who played it were talking about it, saying it was great. But I played it. I didn't care for it. I couldn't get past one match. I was moving on. I played the finals back in March, says Pastor. Loaded it again. It feels very different, less cohesive than it was previously. Interesting. Okay. When do you want a Twist Metal remake? I don't think they're doing it, Mike Warner. I wasn't ignoring you. I just don't have any data for that. Okay. Hopefully Factions 2 releases soon, says PS3 Gaming. I can't fathom that thing's coming out soon, if at all. If at all. Okay. Okay. Sorry, looking at the chat, fellas. Okay. But anyway, I'm curious about that. All right, let's talk about Bungie. Let's talk about Bungie and as it relates to PlayStation. So let me give you the skinny if you don't know. Let me do. I've seen people in the chat talking about Microsoft is blocking third-party accessories to combat the use of devices such as Zim and Cronus, but unfortunately it has a lot of useful accessories too. I don't know. I don't really. I don't mean I don't care, but I don't care. I care for you if you've got some third-party accessories you're going to miss, but I don't. It's out of my wheelhouse. I don't really think about it, but that sucks, I guess. Bungie. What the fuck's going on, Bungie? Man Cave says, I think of a super chat, he says, Connie Booth, Shannon Stud Still, Amy Hennig podcast. If I can get one of them on, I can't get Amy, and I certainly can't get Shannon. She don't want to be on this. She don't want to, what's the point? I'd love to. Connie, in a heartbeat, but I don't think Connie, there's so many things that make those three people you mentioned so great. One of them is they know how to play the game. And I don't think they're ready to kind of write their tell-all, version of, if you don't know, it was called You'll Never Eat Lunch in This Town Again. But there was a movie producer who I think in the 90s wrote that book. And the book comes out and she's like, fuck it, I'm done anyway. I'm just going to spill the fucking dirt. Here's who's on drugs. Here's who's fucking who. Here's who was an asshole. I don't think Connie, Shannon, or Amy are ready to kind of go down that road. But when they are, I'll be calling. That's Ace, my friends. That's my puppy. Okay. Is the final still going? I don't know. Bossman Davey, thank you for the super chat, buddy. He says, Respawn needs to stop the bullshit and make Titanfall 3. Sure, but they're making so much fucking money with Apex Legends. Why would, they'll get to it maybe. Okay. Do I know anything about Amy's departure? I do, but it's nothing I'm not at liberty to share. And it's not my story. It's not my story to tell. But I do know a little bit more than I think what has been reported. Okay, the finals ends November 5th, says Struggle Boxing, so you still have time. Excellent. All right, let's talk about Bungie. So here's the Bungie news. Everybody kind of knows it. There's a little bit more that got fleshed out today. One thing I'll say about Schreier, he gets a lot of good sourced news that we get to talk about. I don't like him as a human, but, I don't like, I don't really like spiders either, but they do stuff that I like. What? Shut up. Shut up. Ace is like, are you talking to me? Where you at, Ace? Okay, listen, Bungie, let's talk about it. Bungie cuts 100 jobs from its staff. They got 1,200 people. Not anymore, pal. Now they got 1,100. Management earlier this month called them in. They says, hey, Destiny 2, this wasn't today or yesterday. This was earlier in the month. They said, hey, we're running 45% below projections when it comes to the ducats we're hoping to make with Destiny 2. We got ourselves some problems, boys. Well, today, CEO of Bungie, Pete Parsons. Come on, tell me that's not Stan Lee created that guy. Pete Parsons. Pinned the mess on weak player retention. This is all of Jason's writing. For Destiny 2. Think about this. Weak player retention, which has faced poor reception since the release. So they moved out their next expansion. They moved out their Sony game, Marathon, which I don't know if it's exclusive, but it's owned by Sony Games Service. That's going to be 2025 now. So who the fuck knows what Sony first party's got coming? That's not the point, though. The really interesting part about this, well, there's a couple of things. The first one is, can you imagine being a Naughty Dog at this point going, wait a minute. You're telling me the motherfuckers who got in Jim Ryan or Herman Holst or whoever's ear and said, this game is not ready for prime time. It's going on ice or being killed or whatever it is happening to it is Depends who you ask. The people who did that to us, assuming that's how it went down, for all we know, Bungie came in, said, Neil, here's what we think is wrong with factions that we would fix if we were you. And Neil's like, shit, you guys are right. Absolutely. I'm on it. Got to put it on ice for a while. That may happen, but probably didn't. Probably the guy who left, who was really integral to the Fortnite bonanza of ducats coming from the Battle Pass. He was working on factions. He left a while ago. So, I don't know. But just imagine that it went the way a lot of people assume, including me, which is Naughty Dog wasn't happy about people telling them how to make their games. Is that true? I don't know. Seems that way. I wouldn't be happy. Neither would you. And now they're laying people off because the one thing that was complained about the Last of Us factions was it wasn't sticky enough. And now here we are dealing with Destiny 2 missing almost half of their projections because it can't retain people. Come on now. That's got to be a little karma coming back and a little satisfying, but also awful at the same time. Of course, it's awful at a human level. Listen to this, though. This is some shit right here. So they laid off 100 people. Now, layoffs, by the way, let's be clear. I mean, they laid off some big names. If you're into the Halo world, like I didn't know who Michael Salvatore was, right? People were like, oh my God, what is happening? Michael Salvatore. I'm like, who's that? And I looked him up, and he's the composer of, the great Halo score and Destiny and all that. And I'm like, okay, usually the way it works when Sony's cutting, or any company, but certainly when I was at Sony, and they're like, look, it's hunting season. We gotta, every studio has to cut this much. So it goes to Connie and Alan and Rhodey and all the people, powers that be at that level going, what are we cutting? Right? Okay. Well, if that's really the main thing, and that's all they're letting drive their decisions, I could see no matter how talented and important Salvatore has been to that company, you don't really need a composer in your, I assume this guy's making a shit ton of money, well into the, six figures. Do you really need that? Or is it like most games, like when it's time for the music, we'll outsource it. Sony has a great outsourcing group of musician wranglers and managers and connected all over the world with great musicians of every genre. Do you really need to be dropping, say, 280, 420K, whatever this guy's salary was? Or do we want to make that where we do one of the cuts, Sometimes the layoffs don't necessarily mean anything other than like, look, budget's too high, let's get in line here. Still sucks. I'm just saying that, there's a perspective there that may be of value as we're trying to assess what's actually happening at Sony. I got 2 things that could be going on. I was thinking about this. Let me go to the chat first, and I'll tell you my theory as to what's happening at Sony and if that company is actually on fire. But first I'll tell you, though. So here's what they said. They laid off 100 people, and they laid them off on yesterday. This is some shit, man. They laid them off yesterday. Which means if you get laid off, they're going to cover 3 months of your health benefits. But it would have been better to lay them off November 1st, because then they would have had all of November paid for, and then the 3 months that Bungie or Sony was going to cover. But there's also other benefits that they didn't list that said those aren't being covered for 3 months. So I don't know if that's dental or glasses or whatever cafeteria program, in terms of like you can put whatever you want in the little bucket of medical and it'll go for that. I don't know, but that's pretty shitty. The other thing that's shitty is if you had shares at Bungie and you were waiting for them to vest, like you were there when Sony bought Bungie and you had 8 shares or whatever, and this was going to be worth this or that, the other, and then you were waiting for that time period. If you were in this layoff, you lose them all. They revert back to Bungie. I mean, isn't that some the least you guys could do is say, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. Yeah, the layoffs suck, but we're going to let you keep your shares so you can, I mean, come on, what's wrong with people? Why are people such fucking assholes? Don't be such assholes. Jesus. Anyway, let me go to chat, and then I'll tell you what I think is, I have two theories as to what's happening at Sony. Okay, let me get some of these. I don't want to let them slide here. We got Twisted Sith. Thank you, buddy, for the sticker as always. Thank you for the nice super chat. I appreciate it. Yeah, Lutron says it is never a good time to get the boot, but around the holidays is extra fucked. You goddamn right. How is it legal you lose shares if you're laid off, says Eclipse. Well, because it's probably, it's not as if you actually own the stock. You have stock that's not yet, and in fact, in this case, I don't even know if it's stock. Because now, I don't know the details of it. But yes, if you own personal stock, it's yours. But if you have entered into an agreement with someone that if you work here after the agreement is signed for X months, X years, your stock will vest, which will mean once that has occurred, it's yours. So you can sell it, you can keep it, whatever you want to do with it. That's relatively common. I mean, when we started Bartlett Jones, we were like, okay, everybody, at least at the beginning, got stock, but it wasn't immediate stock. It was stock that in 3 years or a year after the first game ships, I forget what it was, will allow you to do what you want with it, or at least ownership of the company. It wasn't like a stock certificate because we weren't a public company. I love that you are now a games journalist. I am not a games journalist. Never call me that, you whore. That's from Twisted Sith. And I might even upgrade my membership now that the channel is moving in that direction. Okay, well, now I love you. Never call me that, you son of a bitch. I don't want to be a journalist. You know what? Here's what I want to be. Whatever they call these people. You know how people like Joe Scarborough talk about. He was in politics. He was a representative in Florida, I think. And then later on in his career, he's like, I love this stuff. I like to talk about it. I'm obsessed with it. I'll do a show about it. Or like people who used to play football, now they do analysis on ESPN. That's what I want to do with video games. I don't give a fuck about being a journalist. A, because I don't have the skill set. I love good journalism. I respect it. A pundit, says Co. I'm a pundit, baby. Call me a pundit. I like that. Masochistic, thank you for the super chat. As always, sir. He says, I'll tell you what's happening at Sony. Okay. The bangers are not sustainable. Happy Halloweeny, Jaffe. Thank you, buddy. Okay. I don't know what the fuck is Sony is... Thank you for the super chat mess, because seriously, I don't know who the fuck Sony is getting to replace Mike. The fuck is Mike? Oh, you mean Mike Salvatore. It would still need to sound like Destiny. I'm telling you, man. These guys, like when I went to them and I said, for Twisted Metal, I'd love, Twisted Metal 2012, I'd love to get AC/DC. And like, you can get AC/DC, but you can't afford any other song than the one you're asking for, which I don't know what it was. One Back in Black. Or we can go out to this band, I forget what they were called, they did a song called Raise the Flag. And they're like, this is basically, they sound just like AC/DC back in the day. And they weren't wrong. Right, so I'm sure they could find a gajillion people to go out and go, hey, give us the Santori style of Destiny music. I don't think they're too worried about that. Jonathan, thank you for the super chat. He says, "Fuck you, you piece of shit. Thank you for being a member all these months, buddy, these years." But he says, thank you for the super chat. He says, "Jaffe's my favorite video game journalist. Go fuck your mother." Fuck you, motherfucker. Oh. All right. Okay. Here's what I think is happening. Well, there's two things going on. One is the budgets that are, the belts that are being tightened at Sony is business as usual. Like I said, I've seen this. Even when I was at Sony and the budgets weren't as big, it was still like, oh shit, the top Santa Monica folks, we get called into Alan's office. He's like, look, we got to cut this much money from the budget. If you want to make this game and that game and hire this guy, we got to find that money. That's the way it works. That happens once, twice a year. But I don't know if I mean, this is pretty intense at this point. At least it feels intense. And maybe that's just because it's all hitting at the same time and being reported at the same time. I don't know. But it feels like they're more than usual being pretty fucking aggressive with this stuff. So that can be happening totally separate from the fact that Jim Ryan is no longer there. And there's all kinds of rumors which have not been at all validated that Sony is walking back from the games as a service position that they were, that, you know, those two things may have nothing to do with each other. But they might have everything to do with each other, right? It could be that, no, we're still doing games as a service. We just got to cut this money because it's a lot harder than we thought it was going to be, but we still believe in that vision. Jim leaving has nothing to do with that. He wasn't fired. He didn't, we didn't, I don't think that's true, but that's a possibility. The other possibility is whoever is going to be coming in to take over that role. I know there's an interim right now. I want to say he's a guy from finance. Maybe he's not. Maybe I'm just making that up. But let's say Herman, I don't think it's going to be Herman, but let's say Herman Holt's going to take that role. Maybe in his mind, he's like, look, we knew we were going to be doing layoffs around this time. So this will give me a chance to lay off the right groups and sections of companies, because my vision is not Jim's vision. My vision is to go back to what we do so well and what we know. But none of us know, right? So that's just like, we're all fucking guessing. But I'll tell you something that really was interesting to me about this as it relates to Sony, because like somebody said earlier, the biggest problem right now with Sony just going back to what they've been doing is it becomes difficult to sustain that kind of game being your bread and butter, because they cost so much. And even if they're very successful, Spider-Man 1 sold 27 million at this point or something. Spider-Man 2 could sell that much, but and I don't know the budget for Spidey 2. Maybe it was lower, but it's not like the budget for Ghost of Tsushima is going to be lower than Ghost of Tsushima 1, Ghost of Tsushima 2. So, you always inevitably get back to that Sean Layden, is this really sustainable kind of thing. And so, but what was interesting is, when I'm playing Alan Wake, and to be fair, the first couple chapters of Alan Wake is relatively contained, and certainly not a big budget action game like a God of War would need to be. But, maybe Herman or whoever is going to be taking over is going, wait a minute, fellas. Yeah, what Sean Layden said is right, but how in the fuck can Alan Wake make a game that is, for all intents and purposes, AAA, for $50 million and get all the kudos and potentially all the sales, at least as they relate to a Remedy game? And we're up here starting to be north of 200 million on a lot of these games. Yeah, it's not sustainable, but why do we have to be spending 200 million? Can't we do the same thing that Alan Wake's doing and only spend 50? I'm not saying that's happening. I'm saying I hope that's happening. I hope they have a visionary, and what we're seeing right now is a course correct where they say, this is ridiculous. We're good at this. Our teams love making this kind of shit. Jaffe gets a little bored of them, but every now, but they're ones I love. A lot of them I love, those kind of games. And, maybe there's somebody with a real vision of how we can do this and make it sustainable, at least for another 10 years, another generation. I would hate to think they're doing all these layoffs and they aren't changing Jim Ryan's plan. Can you imagine? Who said it was 50 million, says Eric? I think they did. I think it was like, somebody said it was this in their currency, and if you do American currency, it's 50, and then I think the marketing was another 20. So it's total 70, but it's a hell of a far cry from 200. Brian King, hey Brian King, I haven't seen you in ages, man. Good to see you. Brian King, the creator of Icon Era, going over there. It's a very good, they don't like me over there, but I like them over there. I don't care. They're good people. Brian's a good person. But I saw people up there when the Connie Booth story broke, Same old shit. Jaffe did clickbait. Fuck you. But I like Icon here. It's good people. Anyway, he says Finland's cheaper. Sure. Lower wages, says Ravno. Sure. But, I mean, that may be what you have to do. You may have to basically say, hey, here's how we're doing it, folks. We got our 25 crucial people here in the States. Everybody else is outsourced. We're doing it in Finland. We're opening a studio in Finland. We're opening a studio wherever. That may be what you got to do. I don't fucking know. You want Pudding Face. I'll bring Pudding Face back pretty soon, baby. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We got ourselves a super chat from Bold Alpha Wolfpack. Okay, I have so many questions about that name, but thank you for that very generous super chat, buddy. He says, hey, you fuck. Sony don't need to reinvent the wheel for games and service. Just bring in elements simple as fighting old God of War bosses, cosmetics every 2 months for challenges, and Spider-Man. That's not going to work. I appreciate your super chat, and I know what you're saying, but, I mean, look, Sony has a great thing going with MLB The Show in terms of their recurring service profit with that game. But, you know, how many people are really going to be like, God of War Ragnarok, now every 2 months, you know, we're going to drop a brand new boss. And, if you subscribe for the year, it'll be $29. Otherwise, it's $5 a boss. I mean, I'm sure people would be interested for a little bit, but I don't think these guys are looking for Fortnite money or somewhere between Rainbow Six Siege and Fortnite money. They're not looking for, that kind of work. That was a little profitable. I mean, that's why they're jumping into this shit. Brian King says the people over at Icon Era were kind of mean. I don't care. I mean, they have a right to free speech. Well, it's not free speech, but you know what I'm saying. I don't mind at all. I don't mind at all. I just wanted to mention it because I saw it, and fuck you. Okay. I hope I'm not missing these anniversary texts. I don't think I am. Okay. But we will see what happens with these guys. But yeah, the biggest fuck you to me really would be these guys going, wait a second. They told us factions wasn't sticky enough, and now they're laying off 100 fucking people because their game isn't sticky enough? The fuck are you talking about? I would be pissed. And maybe that's what Connie was pissed about. Maybe, I don't fucking know. Maybe Connie knew. Maybe Connie, this is all making this shit up. Maybe Connie had to be like, I got to go sell these fuckers at Naughty Dog on this horrible decision that maybe she didn't even agree with. And she knew what was coming down the line for Bungie. I don't know if that's true, but can you imagine? Maybe she was like, okay, this is bullshit. And maybe that was enough. And Jim Ryan, you know, being Jim Ryan, was like, haha, I'm going to use this to, I don't fucking know. I have thoughts. Can't share everything. Okay, let's move forward, shall we? Connie Hop in the chat. She's welcome to. I'm going 8 frames a second. Is the stream still running good? Let me know. Jaffe, what would you do, says Masochist, if I was the next PlayStation boss? I honestly, I would say, look, I would look at the people who are still there, and I would say, assuming they have the chops and the passion and the desire to continue to make these kind of narrative games, I would say, let's pick a couple of them that we're going to triple down on and spend crazy money, and then let's figure out a way to do what Alan Wake is doing. Let's figure out a way to do, maybe this is what the rumor is with God of War anyway. Let's figure out a way to do, like, okay, God of War Ragnarok is out. Let's do a 4-hour adventure just with whatever the Blue Brothers are, or maybe just Kratos or whatever. And let's just make that a day one PS Plus premium drop so we can, you know, but let's not, unless someone's just got a brilliant idea for these service games, let's not lose who we are. But we are going to need to sort of go, the budgets, on a lot of these games, if the main reason you love them is the tech and not the gameplay and the narrative and the performances, you're probably going to lose some users. But it's still going to be them, you know, Neil Druckmann with a budget of $2 million or Amy Hennig or Cory Barlog, if you went to Cory Barlog and said, you've got $5 million to make a game, you'd get something cool. It's not going to be, blazing tech, but, I don't think, I think Sony's going to have to give that one up as their main pillar, because that's where the cost becomes problematic. And so that's what I would do. What are dormant IPs I would bring back, Eddie? I don't really care much about dormant IPs. I'm not saying there isn't value in looking at them, but frankly, so much of that is nostalgia. I would look at stuff that, do we have any IPs that really matter enough that it's going to help in public awareness? And if the answer is yes, then let's look at them. But short of that, bring back Tomba. No, I don't think I will. I mean, what's the point? I know some people love Tomba. I know some people loved, a lot of people want Tails Dragoon or something, but it's not big enough to risk on something like that. Might as well start something new. Okay. Looking at the chat. Wouldn't a pivot back from games as a service take a long time? A company that size? I mean, it depends, right? I mean, if you suddenly put Last of Us Factions on ice, hey, that team's freed up to make another IP for Naughty Dog. That happens almost immediately. Whereas if you're talking about, what do we do with Haven? Do we actually believe in whatever that game is called? Do we believe in Concord, whatever that game is? That may be a little bit longer, but no, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'd look at the number of people that are there that still are dyed in the wool. We want to make the kind of games that we came to make at Sony for that reason. And if there's enough of them, no, you could get rolling on it. Brian King says, Jaffe, is it true that Herman had a hand in Japan's studio closing? See, people were attributing that to me, saying that. I never said that. What I said was I heard that he supported the idea of he was happy about it. But that's all I know, is that a couple of sources have said that, but no one told me that he pulled a trigger. He may have, but I don't know. How about a new Splashdown, says Samium. The fact that I don't even know what that is suggests no. Okay. Bold Alpha, thanks for coming back with another crazy generous super chat. He says, Sony cannot keep investing multi-millions in these single-player games and bank on copies sold. There needs to be support to sustain them after post-release, giving players a reason to come back. I think it depends on the game. I think it depends on the budget, right? I mean, if you're saying not Silent Hill, if you're saying a game like Ragnarok, or let's say they make an Alan Wake kind of game, and maybe they'll do some purchasable DLC, but if your budgets are in the Alan Wake territory, I don't know why you need that. Unless it's good for the game. I mean, Sony, one of the things that made Sony so great and took them to where they are now was that they really did have enough gamer-centric executives to say, wait a minute, that's stupid. You may think it makes sense on paper, but that's going to actually piss off gamers and hurt the bottom line, right? And they were listened to, and they made a difference in where the ship got steered. I don't think just because, I think if you make a 12-hour game one and done and you spend $300 million on it, you're probably right. But I think if Sony's like, hey, we're going to make, a $70 million one and done, I don't know. I don't think you could make more money if you made it a games as a service and it never stopped putting out content. But you'd have to get the lightning in a bottle. And the cost of trying to get lightning in a bottle is probably quickly going to surpass the cost of doing a $60-70 million one and done. That would be my thinking. But I don't have access to their books. I'm not looking at their spreadsheets anymore. I used to. I don't know. $2 million budget for release next Halloween. Could it be done and not suck? What game? But yeah, you could. Depends what the game is, though. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm looking at your chat. The main problem too is Sony invests themselves a lot. They'd rather use the writer from the movie and Sony Music Group songs and whatnot. They need outside help and not Bungie's. Sometimes they do that. Yeah, some of these suits must get so mad when they see a game like Among Us pop off, says Masochista. I don't have to get mad, but I think what it does is it absolutely shines a light and says, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're spending $300 million and this game costs nothing? But again, if there was here's what I'd say. If there was a Pixar of games as a service, people at the time were, back in the day, it was like, oh, what about Supercell? I mean, that was different time, different mediums, cell phones. Then I at least think Sony would be like, okay, let's study at the foot of the masters and go, we can do that, and we can even do that better. But because it's so difficult to look to a company that has consistently been successful in games as a service, I really think you have to approach it as a lightning in a bottle thing. You cannot predict. Again, look at the fucking look at the finals. The finals is literally sitting at the most wish-listed game on Steam. Nobody's talking about Foam Stars. I don't know why. I don't know why. Jonathan says, how is a $200 million game unsustainable if it makes $700 million to $1.4 billion? It's not. I mean, it is sustainable, that particular scenario, but can you guarantee that? I mean, that's really what you're doing. You're basically saying our chances of making $700 million to $1.4 billion are substantially higher than our chances of catching lightning in a bottle with games as a service. And I don't think they shouldn't do both, but I certainly don't think now, looking at the landscape now and how difficult it is in 2023, and it doesn't look like it's getting easier to get traction in games as a service, they probably estimated the value of going into that space with the amount of cash that they are spending. Okay. Silver Joystick says Sony has no vision and no one in leadership who is willing to put their foot down. I don't know that, and you don't know that. For all I know, Herman Holst has vision, and all of this is now, again, maybe his vision going, Ryan's out, this is what I've been wanting to do. I thought service games was ridiculous. The people that we are laying off, sad as it is, all fall into those buckets of people who really wanted to do the gym kind of vision, and now we're going to basically figure out a way to make what Sony is great at. We're going to address the real elephant in the room, which was the Sean Layden comment, which is not sustainable. Maybe. Dude says, how come you criticize Phil Spencer when Xbox has a dry spell, but Sony doesn't have anything other than Spider-Man this year? You think I haven't criticized them? You may have noticed the thumbnail for this here video, sir, is literally a PlayStation on fire, a PS5. I criticize them all the time. I love Spider-Man too, but yeah, the fact that Factions was probably going to be a Christmas release or a Q1 release of 2024, the fact that Marathon, which I know wasn't exclusive, but it was Sony owned, is now pushed out to 2025. All we know about is Helldivers, which is fine. I mean, maybe it'll be brilliant. The latest trailer they put out looked fun, but the fact they're charging, I think, $50 for it seems ludicrous to me. And then, MLB will always be a great deliverer as long as they keep up the quality. I'm trying to think what else they've announced, but yeah, no, I've said. I mean, I don't know if they're in trouble and they have nothing, or they're just like, dude, we're selling so many fucking PS5s right now that it's not necessary. The fans are vocal, they want it, but they're a minority. Most people are very happy. Hell, we're going to talk in a second. We'll talk about it now. PS5 Slim. They may have already won Christmas with what happened today. PS5 Slim is out in the wild. It's not officially out yet. I think it's November 10th. But people have been buying them. $500. Same price as the normal PS5. I'm not sure which one, but they're bundling it with Modern Warfare 3. So even though it's now a first-party Xbox game, that is being bundled with the Slim PS5 starting November 10th, and they're not charging any more for it. So it's basically free Modern Warfare if you buy a PS Slim, and the PS Slim is the same price as PS5 has always been. So, I don't think that it's an impossible idea that maybe they're going, we need to announce what's next, but we're good. Why would we blow that wad? Let's do that in February, right? Maybe, because the people who really care, there's not a lot of them. That would be my answer, though, is what I would say. That's just a thought. Doing a big investor-focused announcement of 12 games as service was so stupid, says Brian King. They set themselves up for a fall. Well, I mean, look, man, at the time, I think a lot of us, myself included, was like, yeah, that's probably a good pivot. None of us, I don't know, but I certainly, and I didn't see anybody out there that were reporting on this, felt that it's like, oh, that's dumb. It was like, oh, it sucks it's come to that, but it's like, yeah, I get it. Most of them will fail, but one or two will at least get your Rainbow Six Siege money. And in that, I think people were like, yeah, and then that'll get them this kind of money they can use to keep making the games that people love about Sony. I didn't feel it was dumb when they announced it, but the worm turned, and here's where we are. VYYC, speaking of Jade Raymond's game, says Fair Games, which is what her games team is called, or her team's game is called Fair Games. He says it's going to carry Sony next year. Great, but what they've shown of it so far, if you're suggesting the game is going to be good based on the creative vision revealed in the only thing we've seen, which was the trailer, I would say you were smoking the marijuana, sir, which is good. Marijuana is wonderful. I love it. But be aware that you're currently smoking it, because are you out of your mind? But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's exactly the vanilla, middle of the road, barely any imagination. But, frankly, to me, it looked like Hyenas. And I didn't like Hyenas when I played it. Sega clearly didn't like it enough to even release it. And I'm not saying the gameplay is like Hyenas, but it's got that vibe to it. I don't agree with you. Rain Blade, thank you for the super chat. He says all Sony Interactive Entertainment games should sell 50% of their installed base. Thank you for the super chat. That's a nice theory, but why? Think about what you're saying. So you're saying that Sony should not greenlight a Bloodborne 2? Because there ain't no way Bloodborne 2 is going to sell to half the people that own a PS5. I don't even think Spider-Man, which is one of the most beloved IPs on the planet, is going to sell to 50%. Not entirely sure if that is an accurate statement. It's a nice fantasy. Look at this bold alpha woke Pat comes sliding in with his pantyhose raised up and his lipstick on, trying to flirt with me, you old so-and-so. Here's what he says. Thank you for the super chat, buddy, again. He says, if they can find a way to keep these exclusives fresh and players retained and make profits until the sequels drop, Sony's golden. Single player is what they do best. Why step away? Well, again, bold alpha wolf pack, the thing you have to ask yourself, seriously, you really have to ask yourself this, right? Is if you explode the elements that make a great Sony classic. Let's just take The Last of Us 1. Well, let's take Ragnarok, because it's one of the most expensive, it's most recent. And you say, okay, well, what do people love about this? They love the gameplay, they love the narratives, they love the execution of the narratives in terms of performance capture, great voice acting, great music, great sound, the gameplay they love, and they love the graphics and production. Well, the graphics and production is in terms of just the level of visual fidelity. That's where a lot of that budget goes up and up and up, right? And so the question becomes, can you still make those games, right? A couple of them a year, one a year, whatever. But can you make games that don't come close to that price, but all the other stuff is great? Performance, narrative, gameplay, the IP is interesting, and still maintain a meaningfully significant, profitable number of humans that don't walk away because you're no longer making those single player games also built on the pillar of just eyeball bleeding next gen fidelity. That's the thing, right? Because I mean, you don't have to go down that road to make great narrative games, but that's one of the ingredients in the Sony recipe that they've really built their bones on. Addy Pie says, how did Remedy make a better looking game than Sony? Well, I don't know if their game is better looking, but I would say certainly the talent is cheaper, less expensive, I should say. And at least what I've played so far of Alan Wake, I mean, we know the gameplay length is less. It's like a 12, 13-hour game, which I love. And we also know that at least in the first 4 hours, I have revisited pretty much the same environment over and over and over. And I'm not bored by it because the writing is interesting. But, you know, it's not dissimilar to when you do, if you listen to people talk about TV shows and they're like, oh, this, you know, I remember they were talking about the West Wing behind the scenes, and they said, okay, well, we knew the next 2 episodes we were going to have to fly out to D.C., Washington, D.C. to shoot exteriors, and then we were going to have to go, I don't fucking know, some other, you know, it was going to be more expensive episode 17 and 18. So they made sure to write episode 12 and 15 self-contained. So there were no sets that were written that they didn't already have, so they didn't have to build them. There were no new characters, so they didn't have to go out and pay for casting and whatever. So, you know, it's very possible that Remedy is like, look, we can afford this much content. Let's design around that. I'm not saying Sony doesn't do that or big games don't do that, but usually that happens at the tail end or alpha, where you're like, well, we can't afford the big sand creature, okay. Whereas that doesn't really happen a lot at the beginning when you're talking about a big AAA game, at least from my experience, whatever it's worth, is what I would say. Jojo D, happy Halloween, good sir. 3 years he's been hanging out with us, making videos, being a great part of our community. Thank you, buddy. He says, I love being a part of this great community, and I know the next 2 months are going to be special. No tricks, just a treat. Thank you, Jojo D. And then the motherfucker steps up and says, take some ducats, bitch. He's gifted 5 Gabbin' Games memberships. Think about the generosity of this man. This is a man who lost one lung when he was working in the mines, blind in one eye, and literally thinks it's still 1936. And even with all of that, Jojo D has managed to give $6, you goddamn clown, Wallace Shawn, the Zeke, and Silco memberships to this here channel. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, Jojo D. It's very generous, very kind, very courteous. All right. Got to wrap it up. I'll save that story for tomorrow because it makes no fucking sense. We'll talk about Game Pass tomorrow. There's a lot of good Game Pass stuff coming out. This game, Jusant, is sitting at an 86 Metacritic on Game Pass today, but it's on other services as well. People say it's the knees bees. They say it's pretty fucking good. And then I want to remind you as well, Silent Hill Ascension. I thought it started at 6. I think Mutant Mo or Alex S in the chat was saying it's going right now. But Silent Hill Ascension is going to be live, if not already, tonight at 6 p.m. It's the worst fucking day to drop this thing because people are out celebrating the Halloween. But that'll be live, and this is the thing where it's they're going to give you 24. Here's what it is, high concept. They dropped some new information today, whatever. But it's a 45-minute pilot. where it's like choose your own adventure and you make decisions. There's some mini games. It's kind of like a worldwide mass version of like the less high speed interactive parts of like Until Dawn, right? And then they're going to let that sit for 24 hours, is my understanding. So if you didn't watch it live, you have a day to contribute to the big decisions. But starting tomorrow, every day you'll be getting 15 minutes of new content. And a lot of that content they're putting up is based on the choices that the people made the day and the couple of days before. I don't know if this is going to work. I know there's like it's free, but there's like a season pass and you can get cosmetics. And if you win a cosmetic contest, your character can appear in the actual Silent Hill universe and have like a cameo or a line or whatever. But, you know, I don't give a fuck about that. I'm interested. And if you don't even want to play the game, you can just watch it as a short, you know, that ultimately adds up to a big epic story. Maybe it'll suck. It's only going to be as good as the story is. So I will be keeping an eye on it. This is not the main Silent Hill. We know Silent Hill 2 remake is coming. There's like 3 or 4 other Silent Hills. But this is the first in the Konami initiative to kind of bring Silent Hill back to some level of prominence. But could it work? Maybe. But I think it's only going to work if the story is great. So that's the real trick. Good question. Ted says, Jaffe, what should Xbox do to counter the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 bundle? Look, I don't know. But like I said, I think they just won Christmas. I mean, they were probably going to win Christmas anyway. The one thing I think Xbox has kind of consistently failed on is this messaging of Game Pass. We know about it. It's a cliche, it's a joke, it's a trope to talk about. Oh, it's the best deal in gaming. We get it. But their ads didn't really push that. And so now I think it's imperative if you're Xbox to say, I know you're about to drop $500 on a console. That's a lot of money, and that might be your only console purchase this generation. We advise you, this is what their marketing should get you to think. I'm not saying make this commercial. Maybe they just have Phil Spencer look at the camera and say this. We advise you to be aware that starting February, all this shit, here's what's going to be, quote, free if all you pony up is $15 to $20 a month. Because they could lose a lot of potential. But again, they're saying we don't really care about console sales at this point. I don't know if that's entirely true or if that's just PR. But they're going to lose sales to people because of that deal that may not have been sales they had to lose simply because a lot of people aren't aware that this time next year, Call of Duty is going to be a Game Pass day one drop. Along with a lot of other things. So, you know. The dude says Game Pass sucks when your internet drops out. Why? Do you have to have it connected even if you've already downloaded the Game Pass game? Okay. Yeah, I agree with you on that. We got Eclipse Zip says, my main sticking point with Silent Hill 2 Remake is Bloober Team. I agree. I used to kind of be on the fence with those guys because they did put out a couple of amazing games, but they have just been consistently disappointing for too long for me to not be wary that they're the ones that are guiding the Silent Hill 2 remake. I agree. Do they have a Starfield bundle, says Six? They don't really need that. I mean, if you get Game Pass. Okay, so dude says, yeah, you have to have a connection even if you have 20 games installed. Yeah, I mean, the frequency of people's internets going out as a common problem gets lower and lower every year, but it's still a thing. I mean, hell, my internet went out the other day. Okay, Jonah says you can play Game Pass games offline. I live in the middle of the forest, and I lose my connection all the time. I've played plenty of Game Pass games without the internet. Okay, and then Bold Alpha Wolf says Alpha Wolf Pack says that's not true. I played 6 without internet. Okay, so then maybe then that's wrong. Okay, fair enough. Okay. I'm just reading the chat. Oh, did I like the medium? No. I liked aspects of it, but I felt the character walk too slow. The game didn't do enough. Like, even Alan Wake has a little bit of this problem, but not as bad. But in Alan Wake, I don't know if you notice this or it bothers you, but it bothers me. You have to get to... You have to walk... How do I put this? Okay, there's a town in Alan Wake at the beginning. This is not a spoiler. It's just like a 4-block, beautifully rendered town. Small town, oceanside town, what have you. And you don't know what's interactive, so you have to walk up to a lot of things. And you don't have to get super close, but you got to be maybe 5 feet away before the code checks the volume and says, you're in the volume, we'll put an X up to let you know you're looking at something that's interactive. So in Alan Wake, what I find myself doing a lot of times is almost like it feels like busy work. Like, let me just walk everywhere and make sure I don't trigger an X, because if I miss that, I might miss a solution to a puzzle or what I'm supposed to do next. Well, the medium character walks slower, and the volume that you need to be in to trigger those little sparkles to say you're in an interactive area is even smaller than Alan Wake. And I just find that... super fucking frustrating. But it is what it is. All right. Callisto Protocol, Addy Pie, I own it. I haven't played it yet. I played the trial, which I liked enough to buy the game, but I haven't played it yet. All right, fellas. That's Gabbing and Games for today. Hopefully my computer is fixed starting Friday, and I'm back Monday with the normal music and all the, not that it's like some great produced show, but you know what I mean? It's got more of the flair a little bit and whatnot. But for the next handful of days, we're going to be doing it this way just because my computer's on the fritz and I'm trying to figure out, can it be fixed or are we buying a new one? The guy's coming out Friday. I hate having to wait till Friday, but he's the best in the business. I want him to look at, tell me what the fuck's going on. But I'll be here for you. I'm not going nowhere. Tomorrow, I don't know what the stream schedule looks like. I'm trying to hit every day at 2, but again, this week is just jostling me all around. But tomorrow, I'm going to be on Sacred Symbols Plus with Colin. So I will be streaming something, but that's going to be, those tend to run long because we have really nice long conversations, and those tend to be kind of wear me out. So maybe I'll just do a game stream or something tomorrow. I don't know. But I'll be back tomorrow. I want to let you know, though, the most important thing today is not only Halloween, but it's Prince Green's birthday. Our very own Prince Green, been part of our community for a very long time. I don't have my soundboard, baby, so in that you get yourself a little song. I knew a dude named Prince Green. He was the fastest chef I've ever seen. This is terrible. Happy birthday. Anyway. What's the dirt on my cap? Fuck you, motherfucker. Be safe tonight. Have a great Halloween. Maybe I'll stream a horror game, but right now I got to go do dad duty and drive these Rugrats. Not the Rugrats anymore, but my 18-year-old can't drive yet, and I'm driving him to a Halloween shindig with his pals. So in the meanwhile, be well, be safe. Have a great, happy Halloween. One of the best holidays ever. And thank you guys for the support. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the members. Thank you for the community. And I'll see you soon. I'm just going to end the stream because I don't even have my thing I can go to and play alixplox's music. So it's just going to feel like when you're watching it, it's going to feel like it just cut off. Unless I just go silent. So I'm going to hold my breath. And when I can't hold my breath any longer... No, I'm not. Yeah, I am.